engaging in reduced mow. So in 2019, we became aware of No Mow May, which is a campaign, you might have heard of it, promoted by quite a lot of wildlife conservation charities, where they basically, throughout May, they encourage you not to cut your grass, allow it to grow, see what natural wildflower comes through. And also, obviously, it is quite an important time for wildlife, particularly pollinators. So we started engaging in reduced mow. Last year, we actually did quite a lot of, COVID and the effects of furlough forced us into not cutting a lot of our landscapes, which actually allowed us to identify where a lot of this wildflower was in our lawns that we were not letting germinate, and we were cutting routinely. So now, engaging in these reduced mow areas, we provided more opportunity for sheltering, for invertebrates, and for pollinating opportunities. This particular lawn here, obviously, there's no doesn't seem to be a lot of wildflower in there, but it's still lush and green. It makes for a interesting landscape, and it's good for invertebrates and for providing food opportunities for birds. This lawn is quite different. I suppose this lawn includes flowers what some people might consider as weeds, with dandelions, daisies, and forget-me-nots in there. So we sort of started to reconsider our interpretation of a good lawn, and this is an example of some of the feedback we got. Thank you, staff who trimmed the grass on the bank in front of Rosdale House, which is in Swansea, as they left areas for the butterflies and bees. And we get quite a lot of feedback like that. We also get some challenges and some resistance to the new technique. Some people are quite frightened of it, in that they think it's a typical cost-cutting measure. So there's quite a big communication process and conversation to have there, and opportunity to educate, I suppose. When people do challenge us and show resistance, we have that opportunity then to discuss the reasons for these new features. Where some of the lawns might not include some wildflower, we'll show some native wildflower seed, and some butterfly and bee mixes. So we've just seen some reduced mow areas. We've also got areas like this, which is reduced strim areas. So we're reducing the strimming on our schemes, because also what we want to do is encourage the wildlife, but also reduce our emissions. So every time we start one of our petrol engines, we're investing in non-renewable fuel. We're releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. We're causing noise and air pollution. So by including these reduced mow areas and reduced trim areas, we're improving pollinating opportunities for wildlife, and we're also reducing our emissions and our environmental damage. And also obviously they make for a beautiful landscape, interactive and sensory. Composting, again, quite an easy one, but we've historically always bagged up our green waste and had it collected to be disposed of. Usually these went to recycling plants, but still that would include transport and collection and logistics, and often at these recycling plants the waste is heated at high temperatures that can release a lot of methane and carbon dioxide into the air. So again, not very environmentally sustainable. So again, with the intimate relationship that our caretakers have got with their estates and with their schemes, they've started introducing their own composting facilities, often made out of recycled materials, like wooden pallets you can see here. The compost that we create, residents are welcome to add to it. They're welcome to help maintain it. They're welcome to take compost from the pile. There's a good site. I think it's sharewaste.com. If you haven't got you don't know where your local composting facility is, sharewaste.com is a map of all community-based composting facilities. So somewhere you can take your green waste, or somewhere you can go to collect community compost, community created compost. reduced chemical use. So the main chemical in most of the commercial and shop bought residential weed killers you can buy is glyphosate, and there's quite a lot of research on glyphosate and its harm to the environment, particularly to pollinators. It can damage ecosystems. It's a non-selective herbicide, so it can pretty much kill any vegetation it touches. So we're trying to come away from glyphosate use. There's also some research on the long-term hazards for operatives. So we've drastically reduced our chemical use, mainly by we've limited our weed killer spray into at the moment 3 months of the year. So we've got a small window in spring, a small window in summer, and a small window in autumn. Again, there's plenty of room for improvement here. Eventually, we want to come away from glyphosate completely, and we are trialing alternatives, organic alternatives. And even during those 3 windows, we'll only use glyphosate as a last resort, where manual and organic weeding options are available. They'll always be prioritized. And also, as mentioned in the lawn we seen earlier with the forget-me-nots and the clovers and the dandelions, we're asking caretakers and communities to reconsider weeds as flowers and assets to local wildlife. Tree planting is obviously a big part of climate change solutions, and every year we apply for donations from the Woodland Trust for native tree packs. And there's always community projects going on, and we always like to engage with the community and have the community help us on planting days. This particular picture here is in Cwmfelin Woods in Swansea. A couple of years ago, we lost quite a few trees to ash dieback. So there's a bit of work there. We liaised with Natural Resources Wales, and we planted 420 new native saplings in there. Again, engaging with the community. And then another example is this community orchard. This was actually just a wasted space of lawn. You can see between the rows of trees, there's a normal bank which does flower come spring, summer. So there's with the blossom on the trees as well, there's massive pollination opportunities there. A nice community green space now, community orchard. And that's a bit of a recurring theme with a lot of things I've been looking at in identifying these spaces that are regularly cut and regularly maintained for no real reason. And you see a lot of them throughout communities. Areas that don't really offer much to the environment, they don't offer much to the community. So at Coastal Housing, we're quite passionate about redeveloping these spaces, either for wildlife or for the environment or for communities. So a lot of these spaces have been created from requests by communities and resident members. So I would highly recommend, if you know of any areas in your communities of green space that is just regularly maintained for no reason, and you can think of any other better use for it for wildlife or for the community, then speak to the landowner, speak to the council or the housing association, because if they're as excited as we are to put things like this in place, then I'm sure they could. When if you're interested in applying for a tree pack for your own community project, we get them from Woodland Trust or the conservation volunteers. Both good websites, community gardens. So again, this is another use of dead spaces. So this is a garden in Talbot where the lawn basically went up to the fence. So this garden was just a long stretch of lawn meeting a fence, and that was it. There was 6 residents there that were particularly keen to use the garden for growing. So we helped install raised planters, and this was 2 summers ago. They've obviously growing some lots of beans, and there's a herb bed further down the garden. So again, a good example of using and this was only a small space, showing that you don't need to have acres of land to be able to install something that's beneficial to wildlife or to the community. This is another one in Swansea where in an over 55 scheme where the caretaker installed this garden in a little dead space at the bottom of the communal gardens. Again, it was just an area of lawn that was just regularly cut, using resources and creating waste and not really offering much. And then it became a community garden from which residents share produce and have harvesting events, etc. So quite a positive use of space. Another over 55 scheme here where the residents wanted to engage in some gardening, but all they had was this balcony. So we installed some wheelchair-friendly planters on the balcony, a little herb garden, and there's some out of picture. There's some potted patio fruit trees. So again, a good example of how your space doesn't have to be a big green space. You can include these features on most in most areas. Habitat creation. We touched on sort of the use of recycled materials and waste. Our caretakers are always keen to make these sort of installations with waste and waste deadwood, waste hardcore, and just waste materials. There's a couple of hedgehog houses there, bee or bird bath there. These are solitary bee towers, just made out of felled wood and some blocks of wood. If you drill holes, I think the holes between 4 and 8 or 10 mil, then solitary bees are likely to use them as a habitat. Again, a bunch of habitats made by one of our caretakers, Mark, mostly out of recycled materials, and these go out on the estates with the help of the community. And the kids love getting involved in putting these things up and decorating them and putting them together. And we'll often run community events where the community can help us build these habitats and install them. We do a lot of work with Bug Life Wales. They're currently promoting a project called Beelines. The Beelines is a network of sort of pollinator-rich landscapes and the corridors between them. So we're working with Bug Life Wales on identifying which land, what land we own within these beelines and how we can enhance the landscape to better support pollinators. This isn't just open to organizations like ourselves. This is anybody can go on this website, buglife.org.uk, and see if you're within a beeline. If you are, then there's advice on how you can enhance your own garden or your local community green spaces, and engage with your council again, etc., about how they can enhance the landscapes to benefit the beelines. And if you're not on a beeline, then there's opportunities to create a corridor between beelines. So it's a really good site, fantastic organization, a lot of support for them and a lot of love for them. So if you haven't heard of Bug Life and their beelines project, check it out. So all this work then, we were awarded Bee Friendly accreditation from the Welsh Government, which is awarded to organisations or community groups that can sort of display exceptional protection and promotion of pollinators. And we're aware we've got further work to do, but we've made some good progress, and all of it has been community inclusive. So we'll always include the community in all our communications, all our projects, all our on-site projects. This is a garden. This is actually a residence garden in Swansea. We run a gardening competition, which we've run for many years, and historically it's always celebrated the neatest, most immaculate gardens. But as we know now, an immaculate neat garden can often involve a lot of environmental damage. We're finding that on our own landscapes. So we've started encouraging wildlife gardens and sort of changing the criteria to encourage wildlife gardening. And this was one of the entries. Now this garden used to be just a patio path and a lawn, and over the years the resident is engaged in planting and in sustainability, and this is the garden she's created, and I just wanted to share that because I think it's stunning. waste reduction and recycling. So again, this picture here is from an over 55 scheme. The caretaker asked the residents if they're getting rid of any handbags, any old bags, any satchels, any of the type purses and things to not to get rid of them, to give them to him. And he installed this this heart installation of all the residents' old bags, and it looks like he's got maybe begonias, trailing lobelias or something coming out of there. But again, it's a good creative use of wasted materials. It's a and it makes for, you know, quite unique landscapes. You're unlikely to see that recreated elsewhere. It's quite fun. Repair Cafe Wales. Repair Cafe Wales are a charity that they host these repair cafes. So if you've seen the Repair Shop on BBC, it's similar setup. They go around communities hosting these cafes where local community members volunteer to repair things, because there are a lot of skills within communities that we're not always aware of. So these are good opportunities for skill sharing and community cohesion and as it says on the sign, waste reduction. This particular hall in the picture here is Winequirk Hall in Neath, and we helped Repair Cafe Wales host some cafes there, and they're great events and they're really growing. So if you haven't been to a repair cafe, I'd highly recommend it. You can go on their website and find out where your closest repair cafe is. If you're a keen fixer, if you've got a skill, if they're always looking for people just to help host, to make teas and coffees and to welcome guests, etc. But it's a wonderful charity. So again, if you go on their website, you can find your nearest cafe. And if there isn't a cafe nearby, then propose one. You know, if you're really passionate about it, you can propose one, which is what we did in Neath. We wanted to be involved. We had this space, so we offered, we invited them down. But definitely worth looking. On a similar note, community donations. So our estates team, they accumulate quite a lot of waste. There's a lot of fly tipping and you know around communities, and we know that. So they collected quite a lot of bicycles from communities, and there was a local charity that was sourcing bikes and giving bikes to people in communities who couldn't afford one but wanted to engage in active travel. So our caretakers collected these bikes and delivered to the charity. But again, a good example of what charities and what recycling opportunities are in local communities. Every community's got them. We're not always aware of them, but worth checking out, worth looking what's in your area to reduce your own waste and even for voluntary opportunities as well. We also work closely with Keep Wales Tidy, who again run some really great community events like beach cleans and community litter picks. So this is us on myself and a team of caretakers in Talbot on Aberafon beachfront. There's also opportunities for communities to host community litter hubs. So you can have a space in your community with communal litter pickers and bins and things like that, and the community can just help themselves to the equipment and litter pick the local beach or the local estate, and register that litter pick on the website. So that's a cool thing to get involved with as well. And as far as ourselves are concerned, we increased all our recycling facilities in our offices, which is not very exciting, but it helped us improve our hit our recycling targets in our office. Sustainable development. So I'm going to touch on this briefly because I'm going to use this as an example for what the future of sustainable communities might look like. Gwynvine is a development that we're working on in Swansea and Penryn, and there's we're building 150 zero carbon homes with pobble housing, and as you can see, this is an artist's impression of what the scheme will look like. but it's going to be quite nature-based. There's a woodland surrounding the estate. There's going to be a lot of sustainable urban drainage systems in place. The planting is native wild planting. There's going to be interactive gardens and natural play. 80% of the materials on the actual buildings are going to be locally sourced, and there's all electric systems, meaning that there's zero on-site combustion for homes. We got electric heat pumps, thermal storage, solar panels, and car charging facilities, meaning that we can achieve zero combustion. The properties will have an EPC score of A, and as Elizabeth mentioned earlier, it's important to recognise when putting these new, sometimes technologically advanced systems in place that fuel poverty is considered. So these buildings have all been designed to sort of sustain low energy bills. Just mentioned the electrical car charging that we're installing in Gwynfaine. We're installing these through quite a lot of our communities. We ourselves have replaced 9 of our diesel vans for electric alternatives. We've also replaced a lot of our petrol engine garden machinery for battery powered alternatives, again reducing our reliance on non-renewable fuel and reducing our emissions. And where full electric vans are not practical, our maintenance team travel quite a long way between jobs in a working day. So we're trialing hybrids where full electric might not be practical until the technology there or the infrastructure is better to be able to support full electric throughout the whole fleet. This is an interesting project I'm working on now. This is in Mount Pleasant in Swansea, and this is an e-bike shelter that we're installing. And this was a community-led and crowd-funded project to purchase and install a communal bike shelter with electric charging facilities and 3 communal electric bikes and trikes. So local residents are going to be able to use the bikes to commute around town, promoting active travel. So we offered funding for the project, a location for the shelter, and help with managing the project. And these are happening quite all around the country, really. There's a company called Sustrans, sustrans.org.uk, that they put these up in I think they're throughout Wales now and England and Scotland. So it might be worth finding out if there's one near you. And again, if there's not, we spoke to Sustrans before putting this in, but they're already installing their own ones in Swansea. But they said they're always keen to hear about communities interested in these communal e-bike projects. So if you think it's something that'll be good for your community, I would visit Sustrans' website and contact them. They're really cool organization. Energy, light and heat in our buildings, we are replacing, or at least with all new developments, we're fitting LED bulbs, which obviously are more energy efficient than halogen or incandescent, and more cost effective. And in all our existing stock, when we have to replace lighting, it's always for LED, which is something obviously we can replicate in our homes. Loft insulation, traditional loft insulation, I think now should be at least 270 mil thick. They recommend. When I used to install loft insulation a long time ago, and I think at that time it was probably about 150 mil. So the regs have gone up since then, which is a good thing, because good loft insulation can really reduce heating bills and your carbon footprint significantly. I found that in my own home. I recently increased the insulation there, and it does really make a difference. Solar panels can reduce home running costs and carbon footprint. There's quite often government grants and things like that worth looking up. But again, the technology there is improving quite fast. So solar panels are a good way to reduce cost and reduce your carbon footprint. And smart energy, a lot of energy companies now have got apps and things that you can regulate the temperature of your home more efficiently and cost effectively, so everything in your house is linked. It's quite technologically advanced. But it's definitely worth checking out. This picture here is our the head of our gas servicing team, Ross Joseph, and he's here with a air source heat pump, which is quite a new technology in heating, and we've started to install them now in some of our properties to reduce our own carbon footprint and to hopefully reduce fuel bills for residents. I think my passion is in landscapes and is in horticulture and sustainable landscape management. So I would encourage you within your community, if you can, to challenge your local council or housing association or landlord or landowner. In my community where I live, there's a lot of green space that still is just being maintained routinely for no reason. A lot of grass is being cut often and low, and it doesn't seem to serve any purpose. And find these spaces in your community, these dead spaces that can be used for community orchards or community gardens, or even wildlife gardens, sensory gardens. There's so much you can do with small or large spaces of land that just serve the environment and serve the community so much better than just regular maintenance. So, and also join online groups. I follow one on Facebook. I think it's just called Wildlife Gardening Forum. It's amazing because, I mean, there's people up and down the country that are so passionate about this and so clever and so creative. And they may not necessarily be in your immediate community. So joining an online forum, an online community, you get so much inspiration, and you can share your own story and influence people. There's also groups on energy saving tips, and you get a lot. If you can join local community groups, then you get a good sense of what's going on in the community then, and sort of what projects you can help with. So I would definitely advise joining online communities. There's a documentary called 2040 that's been recommended to me. I haven't watched it myself yet, but the film is about the filmmaker goes on a journey with his daughter and imagines what 2040 will look like and what the world she will inherit will look like. She'll be 21 by the time in 2040, and it's by all accounts it's quite a positive story. But what I have done is I've been on the website. So if you go on the website of 2040, you can answer a few questions about your where you live, how much time you can offer, what sort of green space is around you, and you answer a couple of these questions, and they send you your own bespoke plan on how you yourself can contribute to decarbonisation and increasing biodiversity and tackling climate change. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to watch the documentary myself, but check the website out because it's really quick, it's really easy, and they send you your own bespoke little plan of some simple steps you can make to reduce your own carbon footprint. And I spoke earlier about resistance and about challenge, and we do get that a lot, but it's always important to talk to family, friends, neighbours and community members. Conversations build awareness. We've got to spread this awareness. I said earlier, little steps, little steps can make a big change. We all need to take these steps together, and it needs to become part of our culture and as a society, really. So talk, and don't be afraid of sort of challenge or resistance. Don't let the fear of resistance or challenge stop you from exploring or trying things, because it hasn't stopped me, and we've got some good outcomes from it. So, and promote your journey. So be the inspiration yourself. I'm promoting what we've done, and I appreciate we still got a long way to go. We made some great steps, but if there's anybody listening who is in a coastal housing community, feel free to contact me. Otherwise, I would advise you all to contact local landowners and make the best use of the green spaces around you for the environment, for the community, and obviously for health and well-being. And that's the end of my slide. So I appreciate you all listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gavin. That was absolutely brilliant. So many top tips, and every time I would think, oh, I'm going to ask a question, I would write the question down and then you would answer it. So that's fantastic.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really admirable, as people have mentioned in the chat already. It's really admirable that you went ahead and started this movement yourself. So, down. And,
yeah, thank you.
And yeah, what we'll do is we'll speak with Delith now, and then we'll take questions after that. There are a couple of questions in the comments section that I've written down to ask afterwards. But now I'd like to introduce you to Delith. If you wouldn't mind, stop sharing your slides, Gavin.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks. Delith is from Renew Wales, and she's the communication officer. And prior to that, Delith was a community outreach worker with Sustainable Swansea. So another one from Swansea over here, doing good work in Swansea. The project was for Swansea Environmental Forum and based in the Environment Centre. Delith worked with community groups, organising activities and events around environmental and sustainability issues. They led the way in preparation and publication of a green maps and finished with a series of 14 maps. Delith was in post for 8 years and got involved with Renew Wales back at the start of 2012 as the local coordinator, as for her it felt like a great way to engage with groups and help them to work on projects that really related to climate change. In this session, Delith's going to give a brief overview of the Renew Wales programme, followed by a selection of varied examples of what community groups from all across Wales have achieved to inspire you into action in your own community, in your own area. They include a wide range of options from transport, energy, food, biodiversity, raising awareness, and much more. This should help you to think about your own situation and how that you can live more sustainably. So welcome, Delith, and thank you for coming today to join us.
Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr am y cyfle I ddod I siarad I chi prynhawn yma. How do I follow that, really? It's really interesting and really great to see what's been going on and hear what's been going on with coastal housing. I knew a little bit of it, but I had no idea how much they were doing. So there's quite a lot of synergy, and I agree with a lot of the things that Gavin was saying. Individual action leads to community action what influences wider society, and then it's a snowball effect, a multiplier effect. So certainly agree with a lot of what Gavin has said. So yes, I'm from Renew Wales at Fwyo Cymru. This is our sort of strapline: people supporting people to take enterprise and action on climate change and sustainability. Obviously, by climate change, we mean reducing our emissions. We also mean adapting proactively and positively to some of the changes that climate change is going to bring, and also supporting people to live more sustainably in general. The enterprising bit is about people not waiting for someone else to do it, similar to what Gavin sort of said, people actually getting up and trying to solve the problems themselves, using their own creativity and their own genius and resources that you've already got in your own community. And then the people supporting people bit. The Renew programme is all about peer-to-peer support, those who've already taken action on climate change, and sort of sharing their experience and buddying up with people, if you like, to sort of share what they can learn from each other. So it builds the capacity of those who are receiving the support and those giving it, and strengthens the local network of people who are taking action on climate change and helping in their society. Now my slides won't move forward. Oh my gosh, they did earlier.
You want to stop sharing and try sharing again? Sometimes that can help.
Thought I'd got this sus this time.
Would it be a Zoom session without a digital issue? Just wouldn't, would it?
Is not going to let me do it, is it? Let's try it this way. Yay. Does that change now?
Yes. Yeah.
Gosh.
Well done.
I say that 9 times out of 10 it works, but obviously it didn't then. So just a brief slide on who we are. We're a programme that's hosted and managed by Development Trust Association Wales, set up by a consortium of groups that you can see their logos down the left-hand side there. and we're funded from money from dormant bank accounts from the Sustainable Steps programme of the National Lottery Community Fund. So in a nutshell, our programme works like this. We start a conversation with community groups. Now, whether they come to us, we've got local coordinators, about 20 I think we've got now, dotted around the place, around Wales. They're based in other third sector organisations. So either the groups come to the coordinators, or the coordinators obviously have local contacts, and sometimes they seek out the groups. The important thing is that we start with a conversation about what they want to do. It isn't about us implementing anything for them. It's a conversation about what they already do, what they want to do, and what matters to them. And obviously bringing in issues about climate change and living more sustainably in a quite a holistic way. So based on that conversation, then we facilitate an action planning session where the group can prioritise. Sometimes some groups just want to do one thing. Sometimes they've got a huge long list and it's like, well, where do we start? Which one shall we start with? So the whole point of the action plan is to really get them to think either more widely, or maybe sometimes to sort of harness and bring in their enthusiasm. And then that helps guide the next process, which is we put them in touch with what we call peer mentors. So it's anybody who can already help them, usually people who've already done something similar, and they can share expertise, advice and experience, show how things can be done, and just as important, how not to do some things. It's important to learn the good things that have happened, but also to share some of the issues that have gone wrong as well. And the support is free to every community group that receives it. It's us who pays the mentors and pays the groups from our central point. So what does this actually look like on the ground? Some pictures here, a variety of pictures from some of the groups that we've supported over the years. So, but basically it's people doing good stuff in their community. We've supported hundreds and hundreds of groups over the years. So it can be around energy, around land, nature, waste, transport. Maybe it's just general awareness raising. Maybe it's about food, community enterprise. You know, it could be absolutely anything. So, which encourages people to live in a more sustainable way. So the next 7 or 8 slides are going to be sort of examples of some of the groups. I've tried to pick quite a variety to, as I said, to help inspire you that there are really, you know, the only boundaries to what you can do are maybe your own imagination and perhaps the resources that you've got. So the first one here is Women Connect First. They're a charity based in the Riverside area of Cardiff, so a very urban area. And they support women from ethnic minorities in a huge variety of ways. Climate change and its consequences is a very real issue for this organisation and some of the women who come there. Some of them have fled from countries that are already suffering from climate change. So it's an issue for the organisation as a whole. They've undertaken a survey of their building, their offices, from an energy, a waste and a water point of view. And even though they can't implement all of those now, when some funding becomes available, they will be doing some of the bigger stuff. But they've, you know, improved the controls on their radiators and improved little things and raised awareness. But in the meantime, and some photographs you can see here, they've held climate change awareness sessions and awareness course. It's discussed issues like food, clothing and the fashion industry. They asked the ladies who came along which aspects of climate change were important to them. I think the photograph on the bottom was them having a go at making their own cleaning solutions. So really tackled a lot of the issues that were important to local people. And again, one of the main things that this group does well is obviously sharing that information. You know, maybe 7 or 8 people came to on that course, and yet they all live in their families and their communities, and the message hopefully is being spread that way. Aber food surplus in Aberystwyth, it sort of does what the name implies really. They collect and distribute waste food and surplus food from amongst for community members that the food would otherwise be destined for landfill. So they offer food sharing, a community fridge, and they've also got a pay as you feel meal and cafe area for those who need it. They're a group who are always looking at ways of improving how they do things, both from a practical sense and also sort of behind the scenes in their own organisation. So they hold community events around food, raise awareness and do a lot of sort of informal education that way. I think they recently changed some of their collections and deliveries to be done on bikes as well if they're in a really local area. So that's a really dynamic organisation that is always looking to change and improve things. So we've done a lot of work over the years with youth groups who support young people to live fulfilling and successful lives. A lot of them work on lots of different schemes at the same time. So we can see here at the bottom, there's, you know, a gardening project that was already going on, but they came to Renew Wales for help with things to do with cycling. So they're restoring disused bikes, they're using reclaimed parts and materials. Obviously the young being skilled and upskilled, learning practical skills there, which will help them later in life. And it's given them cheap, flexible and healthy, sustainable means of transport as well. I think they loan out the bikes. I'm not sure if perhaps they've even gone on to start selling them now as well. But I think, you know, it's a way for the young peoples to get back and forth to school and college if maybe they were ones who didn't have their own transport. So we've done quite a lot with young people. And the next one is very exciting. A lot of you might have already heard about this. It's one of the most high profile projects we've done, really. So this is what's been known as the Digital Bench, and it's Rhydyfelin Youth Club in Pontypridd. Newydd Housing Association were working with the youngsters, and they were thinking of doing, you know, recycled planters and plant pots and just doing stuff out of recycled wood, really. And then one day they sort of sat down and had a bit of a session where they thought, is there anything else we can do? And the young people came up with, when we're out and about in town, there's nowhere for us to sort of charge our phones. That was the original problem, if you like, that they were trying to address. Sort of, in a sense, quite inward looking. We're out and about, we need to charge our phones. What can we do about it? So they'd already done stuff, as I said, out of pallets and recycling wood. So they developed a lot of those skills. And they eventually came up with this idea. So the panels, the roof, those are solar panels on the roof, or somehow there's solar gain on there. And then they put a seat there because obviously charging takes quite a while. So people were going to be able to sit down. And then once, because the roof on there, it makes it a more pleasant place. They were thinking of the homeless in their area in Pontypridd and wanted it to be somewhere where the homeless could sit, and I think they even finished it off with a bit of a curtain or something around there that it could be a bit more concealed. And obviously then you can see some planters there. They've got rainwater coming off the roof, which is irrigating the planters in the side. So basically it's such a great example of what they started with, quite a straightforward, wouldn't use the word sort of selfish, but inward looking kind of issues where they started, and that has developed into something so much bigger. And as I said, anytime we talk about this, I can't see the chat at the moment, but I'm sure there's already questions about, oh, tell us more about that, because it's something that has really captured the imagination, and there are a few other groups around Wales who have tried to replicate something similar. The next one, going back to the food and nature theme that Gavin was talking about, Incredible Edible. There's a whole movement around incredible edibles all across the UK. And this is one example in Porthmadog. As you can see, they've been very inventive with what they're planting in. They're planting in toilets, and I think those are little old boats that the people on the top right are sitting on. But engaging people in thinking what makes for thriving and resilient communities, and using food as a lever. I think everybody who works in communities realise that food is a big draw, isn't it? If you've got a meeting and you can offer some food, you'll get more people there. And as Gavin, I'm sure, has found with residents who are out working in a community garden, it's a great place to share, learn new skills, meet new people, and just a very sociable thing to do. But obviously on top of that, they're nurturing healthy local food full of nutrients, cutting down on carbon footprint and food miles. So it's fresh and healthy food all at the same time while this is all going on. So that's an Incredible Edibles project. This is Friends of Graigwen Woods in Pontypridd. It's an area which is 5.6 acres of oak and beech mainly. The land became available for purchase, but it was when the local people heard about it, it was already sort of, it's going to be purchased for development and for building on. And the local people decided they weren't happy with that, so decided to do something about it. They set up a group And cut quite a long story short, they established a community share offer. They needed to raise £20,000 to buy the land to keep it in community use and to stop a development going ahead. So they started on that, and it was quite successful, but I think the time for the auction was coming up really soon. And so luckily they had a local business person who was supportive of them, and as a temporary measure, they bought the land then, kept it sort of ready for when the group had raised their full funds. So that was a temporary measure, and then the community will pay that person back. So the objectives of the group are quite simply to safeguard the woodlands from development. They want to protect the flora and the fauna. We see lots of bluebells. They're a really lovely natural wood that they want future generations to be able to take advantage of. They know, perhaps it's one of those cases where local people, I know when I've spoken to them, some people have said, oh, we sort of take for granted what's there really, and it was only the threat of something happened to it and it being taken away has maybe made a lot of them realise they should use it quite a lot more. And then now they're opening up new paths and improving the biodiversity there. So the mentor that helped them from our point of view, I think, did a woodland plan for them and helped them really take stock of what kind of growth was there. None of them were really, you know, expert in trees and shrubbery. They didn't really know exactly what was there. So they had a really good look around, saw what was there, what was in good condition, what maybe needed a bit of TLC, and sort of they're starting on that work now. I think obviously COVID has affected what they've done, what they've been able to do quite a lot. So it's definitely work in progress, but that is an example of a community taking over woods in order to preserve it for future generations and to help improve the biodiversity of the area and for community use. Up in North Wales, University of the Third Age, there's a sustainable living group in Ruthin. This group asked local people, would you like to reduce your environmental impact? You're not sure how best to go about it. Are you unsure what to do first, where you should maybe concentrate your efforts? Do you want to do something about climate change, but you're not sure if if it's worth an individual doing something on their own? And also then it was sort of, well, have you tried to Google stuff and are now totally bamboozled with both the amount of information that's out there and the scope of it and the severity of it, and has it just really paralysed you and feared you really? So the intention that they set up this group, and I think within less than a year became the largest group within the U3A in Ruthin. I checked their website last week, I think, off the top of my head, I know it was a long list. I think they've probably got about 30 different groups running on a whole variety of topics, but this has been a really popular group. And the whole point is to inspire members. They were definitely talking about the multiplier effect, speaking to individuals, those individuals then having conversations in their families, you know, and the message just spreads. So they meet monthly, or they did meet monthly, mixture of speakers. Sometimes they watch films, sometimes they have a discussion, and sometimes they go on site visits when they're allowed to. So some of the climate topics already that they've had are stuff around shopping and fashion and ethical products. They've done a lot on travel, including offsetting for air travel and electric vehicles. They've done a lot on renewable energy, switching suppliers, energy efficiency. They've also had from local authorities, from their local authority, and looking at some of their, maybe around their waste strategy or their housing strategy. So they've looked at, and they've also looked at water and water quality, and also about ethical investment. So they've looked at the financial things and where everybody keeps their money in bank accounts and stuff like that. So it's quite a brave option there. So what is ethical investments? And they've been through there. So that's a really thriving group up in Ruthin. I think this is the last one of the examples. So this is Maes Gaerchen in just outside Bangor. It's classed as a deprived area. It's part of the Invest Local programme that the Buildings Community Trust run. So they do have one advantage in the sense that they have an absolutely huge budget to spend over 10 years. So lots of ideas have come forward, as you can imagine, from a community that size. And Renew Wales has got involved in just some aspects of that. And the four are electric bikes and transport. They wanted to look at that as a possible option for local people to get around a little bit more. Also, they were concerned about fuel poverty and high energy bills. A lot of the tenants have often got prepaid meters, which, as we know, is more expensive. So had a lot of information about energy efficiency in their own homes. One of the big projects they're looking to do is a new community centre. Not too sure if that top right picture is an old community centre, but they're certainly looking at a new community centre with a new facility for children and young people going forward, and obviously want that to be a really sustainable build using local materials and local skills, and a lot of the kind of issues that Gavin was talking about earlier as well, really making it a focal point for the community. And a community garden, a growing project, healthy, fresh vegetables, as I said earlier, learning new skills and intergenerational activities. So those are just literally, I don't know, 7 or 8, maybe 9 examples. There are hundreds of different ones. I was hoping to pick a variety of different ones that they would inspire you. As I said, I could go on. We've got lots of car clubs, community gardens. There's plenty of examples of things that are going on right across Wales, really. But the important thing is that people are doing what matters to them. They're doing it where they are. As I said, it's not us sort of parachuting anything down from the top. It's us responding through our network of people who've already done it to what they need to do and what they want to do. So it's tackling sustainability in a rounded and holistic way. So I guess the challenge really is, you know, what can you do as tenants and as people in your community? What can you do on your own, and what can you do with your neighbours? It's all about sort of pooling experience and pooling knowledge and skills. I'm sure Gavin has found, you know, when you're working on the ground there are people, you know, come out of the woodwork and suddenly think, well, actually, yes, I know about that. I can help with that. I can tell you about that. And I can tell Mrs. So-and-so down the road, and everybody works together on that. So just a quick snapshot. I think this is probably a little bit out of date as well of from our website, some of the community projects that we're working on. And I think my last slide is just our website and social media outlets. So hopefully that's given you a bit of pause for thought. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Della. That was amazing. I can't believe how many different organisations there are out there doing so many wonderful things. Definitely resonates with me, the whole food comment. I definitely miss that the most, I think, about seeing people is also eating those buffets at those different events. So it's definitely an important one. So yeah, thank you so much. I also wanted to mention that Gavin had said earlier about repair cafes. Repair Cafe are actually talking at our event tomorrow. So if you aren't already registered for that, please do take a look. And then, yeah, I would like to move on to Q&As now. I had a question that I would like to ask Gavin, really, and it was around how did you know that there was such a significant impact environmentally through all these different avenues? Like, I was never aware of things like weed killer having an impact on the environment, things like the fact that you would take compost to the skip, you know, then that, and to even think that that would cause an impact too. And it was really interesting. So I was just wondering, you know, did you just have to educate yourself around that?
Pretty much, yeah. And I think perhaps that's part of the problem. At the time, when I was a caretaker, I was studying practical horticulture in college, and there was a module on sustainable horticulture. So that was probably first when I was introduced to it, because at the time I was lost in the culture of heavily maintaining gardens and shrubs that had to be geometrically perfect and lawns like bowling greens. So yeah, it was the fact that I was on this course, and had I not been, I probably wouldn't have been exposed to these new ways of working.
Okay.
But then I suppose the good thing about learning is then being able to use what you've learned and use your platform to educate further, then, isn't it? So I suppose that's what inspired me to create the pitch that I put to my board of directors for the role, is because I wanted to use what I learned to influence others. You know what I mean?
And I suppose that's what you're recommending for everybody here, isn't it? To take away these points and take those back to your organisations or to the tenants and have these conversations so that we can,
Yeah,
get the ball
definitely.
rolling. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Gavin. Does anybody have any questions? We've got a question from Nazia, and I was wondering if you want to come in and ask that.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Hi, everyone. My question was to Gavin initially, and it was around the sort of amazing work that you've been doing at Coastal, and I really props to you for taking the initiative to carry that forward. But there's a comment that you made around communication that I thought was interesting, and it was sort of, communicating with tenants and the community, and I wanted to know what your experiences were of sort of taking and bringing the community with you on this journey, and being part of this sort of initiative in a way that you were sort of doing with the community as opposed to doing to. And I just wanted to know what that experience was like, really. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's probably been the trickiest part of the whole process. Probably has been the communication, because there is still some resistance, and we do try and engage with the community as much as we can. I mentioned in my one of my slides that we're quite lucky to have quite an intimate caretaker service. So the caretaker is on site most of the time, so you can communicate face to face with residents. The communication is tricky. It's got to be a sort of multi-platform communication, because social media will only reach so many residents. The website will only reach so many residents. So in areas where we are implementing changes, then we like to host community events. As Delith and Elizabeth said, the invite of food, and we invite guests along, and fun things for the kids to do. We'll have the kid, in the past we've had the kids making seed bombs, and we've had sensory plant demos with food and drink and music and things like that, and entertainment. And while the community there, then we chat about these changes. And what we found quite useful as well is to have some success stories. So work in communities that the response is quite positive, and sort of gather those success stories as case studies to show to other communities. It's hard. The trick is trying to please everybody at the same time. You're not going to do it. And at the moment, if we change nothing, we're still upsetting a lot of people like ourselves who want this change. And so, what we're trying to do is make our, the most ethical decision that we can make. And then just try and make the communication as good as possible. So on our reduced mow sites, we'll install signage that explains why the grass is being left. Through social media and on the website, we discuss, and through conversations that the caretakers are having with residents, we sort of discuss that, where the time is saved with perhaps not cutting a particular lawn. Our organic weeding program takes longer than spraying would. So where there's time saved, there's other organic horticultural practices that actually need more time. So it sort of balances itself out. But the communication is quite difficult. And we probably found that during COVID and furlough, the fact that our estates team were off work for quite a while, so all our landscapes just thrived. I think, Delith mentioned, that I think people appreciated what was on their doorstep more then, and rather than proposing these ideas, we were forced into these changes, and wildflower was coming up that we didn't know was there, and shrubs were flowering beautifully, and the landscapes were just looking so much more interactive and sensory and aesthetic, and so that did help a lot. But I would say that community events signage. I haven't got all the answers because we still are meeting resistance and challenge, but we're finding ways.
Thanks, Gavin. That's really helpful. I noticed Hayley had a question. I'm not even going to attempt to go through all of these people on the screen to try and find Hayley. But if you do want to speak up, Hayley, please feel free. She'd mentioned around the need for education, an educational piece around why not cutting grass is beneficial, because the expectation that there'd be a lot of pushback. I can imagine, you know, I live on an estate, and I think if they weren't cutting the grass out the front, I'd be a bit annoyed about that if I'm paying my estate charges or service charges or whatever that is. And what kind of resistance do you get from that?
Yeah, that's quite a typical resistance. Eventually, I mean, if you know, we want these changes to be long term. So eventually, you know, our residents are service charged. So eventually, if the new way of working means less service charge, then that's the future. And you know, I'm not, you know, I don't know if all councils will be that accommodating, but I suppose, yeah, again, it's the whole education piece, because I you know, I used to be like that. I used to, you know, appreciate the short lawns in my community, and now it bugs me when I see them getting cut. On the school run this morning, there was a lawn of dandelions and daisies just getting stripped, and it bugged me. So yeah, again, it's the whole education, communication, signage, sharing of success stories and things like that.
Yeah, thanks, Gavin. If anybody's not got any other questions, if you have got questions, please go to the reactions and press raise hand. If not, we're just going to put you off into breakout rooms. Oh, Amanda's got a question. Amanda, would you like to come in?
Yes, you said you created your role, Gavin, because you saw the need within your housing association. Are you aware of any other housing associations have actually taken that step themselves? Have you helped others to create the role in other areas?
Yeah, I think over the last couple of years, a real network seems to be building now, and a lot of housing associations and councils have got these sustainability departments, biodiversity departments. I'm certainly seeing that in South Wales. So yeah, the network is growing, and there's a lot of passionate people working on it now. So together, yeah, again, talking about communication and education, there's definitely collaboration as well between councils and between housing associations and landowners. So there's plenty of potential for collaboration there. And yeah, there are lots of people, thankfully, working on this.
Thanks, Gavin. I'm aware we've literally got just short of 15 minutes left, but I would like to give you all the opportunity to just go off into a breakout room for 8 minutes specifically, and have a little talk about what kind of thoughts have come up as a result of this, and what you could take away with you. Might be that you're already doing something yourself already and you want to share that. Once you've had that discussion, if you just feedback one point, but in the chat box when you come back in, just so that we can all take away people's different ideas. Mally, if you could put everybody in the breakout rooms now, please, for 8 minutes, that would be fantastic. People dropping off are like, no. They'll just be small breakout rooms. There we go. Hello. Oh, we can't.
Elizabeth.
It's a problem.
Yeah, I think I'm on.
It's because it's a phone call and she's not able to unmute for some reason.
And I can't turn my camera on, and I don't know why.
That's okay. What are you doing in your organisation?
Well, we're consulting at the moment.
Okay.
How are you doing, Elizabeth? You all right?
Yeah, I'm okay, thank you. Busy week. This bloody dog, she sang.
It's okay.
Funny how he does that now. You're consulting around this, are you, at the moment?
Yeah, we got a consultation, try and get some ideas out of the community as to what action is, what knowledge they've got, what activity is ongoing, and then what we can do to get involved. And we also did some work with the youth, a youth group, and we're looking to do some environmental work with them at some point. Maybe do some stuff with bees.
I loved it. I love the whole bee thing. We went to a bee to look at when me and my little girl, we wore like the whole face covering thing to look at bees and to understand that bees are like really lovely, and they'll only sting you if you were scaring them or whatever, but actually wasps are the enemy.
Yeah, we don't like wasps, but there's loads of other pollinators as well, and we have to be friendly to them. So yeah, no, it's but yeah, we're early stages. But I think the second part is like, what am I going to take away from today? And I think that one in particular was, I'm pretty aware there'll be resistance, but it's that communication that's key. And actually, what's important is getting out there and seeing people face to face and being there. So if you make a decision to do something in a local area, is to have feet on the ground. So not just, put a post on Twitter and go, aren't we brilliant, look what we've done, and then just kind of disappear. It's about spending that time. And I think that's where Coastal do well, is because they've got their groundsmen and, grounds people, sorry. I think it makes, it really shows that they've got that community presence. And
really important, isn't it?
Trying to, yeah,
and also that those groundsmen are very like community orientated and able to have those conversations, and quite personable people or whatever, to build those relationships, because that can be quite difficult, can't it, if people are on the ground who are not approachable and things like that. So
yeah, it's a different thing, isn't it? If you send your executive board out to meet with people in a community, it'll be a different vibe. The guy you see every week, trimming and tidying and things. But the other thing I've heard of is, because I've had questions about, the unkempt, when you leave things wild and that, is to just cut pathways in them.
Yeah.
So rather than the whole thing, but actually turn them into a feature, so you can allow people to walk along it, because there's a term that I've encountered, it's called desired paths.
Right.
And it's where humans, or I suppose animals as well, but where you've got like pavements and walkways, but people cut across and do shortcuts. It's essentially shortcuts, but the term is the desired path. And I think that sometimes you can build in, and if you talk of something that's created by the community, there's nothing greater than seeing pathways created naturally and organically. Like,
oh, Reece, look at you with all these good ideas. I can feel a officers network topic coming up, to be honest, because like all this stuff, I feel like there's so much to share. I bet everybody's got some great ideas, and we're not going to have time to share it all today. So I might actually make one of the officers networks this topic as well, so that we can all share those ideas.
I often find it a bit overwhelmed with it, because you kind of get really inspired by people, but also you think, oh God, I can't do it. You can't do it all. Yeah. And I think the key is to see it as and that's what Gavin was really good at. It's a process. It takes time. You aren't going to do every project immediately. It's going to be, start small and let it build and develop. And I think that's the lovely thing.
Absolutely. And I didn't realise how much Gavin was doing, to be honest. Like, obviously I've set the sessions up and he told me a few things, but he's obviously covered so much today, and I was like, whoa, they're doing so much incredible work, and it's really inspiring.
Should we go back in just in case?
I don't know. I think I've just messaged Mally now to say, isn't it ending now? 1 minute left.
Or do we just kicked out? You get kicked out.
Oh yeah, we just get kicked out. Yeah.
Oh, see, now this is the awkward bit where do we start a conversation or do we just kind of fill the time?
Well, it comes up and says like 60 seconds left, I think, usually.
Yeah.
It ends at 26 minutes past. So, what everybody to feedback something that I don't know whether, I feel like everyone should feedback a point about, I was going to say something
get people to type it in the chat box and you can just pick
what
out
though? Either something they're going to take away or something that they're doing already.
Well, you can say you can start off anyone who does it, who's doing something, to put it in the box, and you've got 2 minutes to fill that in. And then the next one is anyone what are you going to take away or what inspired you today? I think that's the, and then everyone can chuck it in, and again you can pick a couple of main points out. Then
right,
you get
let's
it.
see then. Thanks so much.
That's okay. Thank you for coming in. Cheers, Liz.
Bye-bye.
It's been all day.
Hello everybody. There's obviously a few people chatting away and they don't want to come back in yet.
Hello.
Hi Lee, long time no see.
How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
Good.
Nice to see you, Lee.
Once everybody comes back in, we'll do a quick feedback in the chat box because otherwise we'll be here chatting all day. Okay.
I'm glad to say Lee's done the typing for me.
The chat's already coming up for me. There we go. That everybody back, I think. Yeah. Thanks all. I hope that going into those breakout rooms was helpful to have a little chat. What it made me really realise is that how much great stuff is going on and how I think that we need to turn this into a network as well, like an officers network and tenants network conversation, because otherwise a lot of opportunities and conversations are going to be missed, I think, today. So yeah, if one person from your group could just write in the chat box either a point, something that you're already doing yourselves that you want to share, or something that you're going to take away from today to share with everybody else, and we'll have a look through those. So I'll just give you 2 minutes to type, or a minute to type, and then just press enter, and then we can have a look through them. Also, yeah, before we end the session, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you for coming today. You know, time is so precious. It's incredibly precious right now when, you know, we're sat in front of the computer screen trying to get some sunshine as well. So thank you all for coming today, and to our fantastic speakers. I'm sure you'll all agree they brought so much knowledge today. So thank you both, Gavin and Delith. I'm going to actually give you a clap because that doesn't happen anymore. So
thank you. Thank you. You're welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. And last but absolutely not least, we have obviously got the rest of the week for Decarb Week, #Decarb Wales, if anybody is tweeting. The rest of the week is filled with retrofit tomorrow, and then we have future homes and future communities on Thursday, and then on Friday we have oh my gosh, it's gone out of my mind. I did plan this week, I promise. We have library of things, yeah. So why you need a library of things, how you can save money and save the planet, and that's on Friday. I think that's another free session, so please do get involved with that. We will have a look at the chat after this and take some points away and put them on social media for you to have a look at. If anybody has got anything to say before they leave, please do put it in the chat box. If not, feel free to get off and have a nice cup of tea in the sunshine, hopefully, and I'll hopefully see you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
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 Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, hwyl fawr.
Diolch.
I turn this thing off. Oh.